Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for being here at our Wednesday webinar. I'm Stephanie Crawford. I'm the Executive Director for IDEA. We know it's June and we've finally made it, and it means a lot that you're here with us today to be learning. Just as a reminder, towards the end of the session, I will put in the link to claim your PDH if you're an Illinois educator wanting to get credit for that. If you have questions throughout, please feel free to use the chat. And then at the end, if there's time for Q&A, we know that sometimes you feel more comfortable asking questions if it's not being recorded. So I will stop the recording at the end for that, and you can ask any questions that you have. And without further ado, I don't want to take any more time away from Colleen today. So I'm going to throw it over to her, let her introduce herself, and we'll get started.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I appreciate it. All right. So my name is Colleen Cannon-Rufo. I am a solution architect with LEGO Education. Go back onto that other one. I'm a solution architect with LEGO Education. I get to support the great state of Illinois and as well as other parts of the Midwest and the Northeast. So what my role means is that I get to work with account managers like Christy and Stephen to make sure that whatever solutions we choose to put into the schools, that they fit your curricular vision and goals. So it's a pretty cool role. I have 29 years of background in education myself, all in the state of Illinois. And I started as a classroom teacher, moved into a technology integration specialist, and then from there to the district office as a project manager. So for the last 20 years within that, I've been using LEGO Education Solutions, and I'm really excited about what I see kids doing and how they learn when they're learning with our products. So really excited to share all of that with you. Christy, did you want to say hi real quickly? I'm not certain if Steven's here.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. I am one of your account managers, and I'm happy to connect with you after this discussion if you have any questions. So feel free to engage in all of the exciting discussion and take some notes. There's a lot going on. So thanks.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christy. So I'd like to start real quickly with a little update on who is LEGO Education. Most people know the LEGO Group. They know the company, our parent company that we work for. And yes, we are the LEGO Group, but we are that division within the LEGO Group that exists for you, that exists for teachers. So there is nothing that is created in our division that isn't wrapped around an academic standard, from the models to the lessons to the units themselves. So basically we start with the academic standards and then we go from there. So that is who we are. We've been around for about 40 years, in part at the request of teachers, which is awesome. They were the ones who said, hey, we love your product. We want to bring it into the classroom. Can you help us make our play more purposeful? So that's when we got involved with teachers, with education. I will tell you that when we see a pile of bricks, what we do not see, well, what we see is more than just a toy, right? We see Lego bricks as a medium. We see it as a means of communication, a way of demonstrating your understanding, a way of ideating or creating or communicating with someone. For us, it's as much a teaching and learning tool as it is a toy. And that's where we get excited to share that vision with you. This is our mission, and I find this a very important part of our presentations. It's that idea that we want to inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow, enabling every student to succeed. And we take that term every very seriously. We understand that we started in an after-school space, we started in the summer school programs, but we truly believe that every child should have access to the type of learning that happens with LEGO Education. So we're working very hard to make sure that we can use our solutions within the school day so that all students have that opportunity. And we're doing a really good job working towards that, I can tell you that. So let's talk about why we're here today, right? We're talking about understanding the learning standards and that hands-on learning and how we can really support those Illinois learning standards. I wanted to start with this graphic. It's a quick one that basically talks about the 10 biggest challenges in education. This was an issue of educational leadership that came out in September. And each of the articles in the issue was related to some of the biggest challenges that are in education today. And you can see some of these are pretty big. From, it's hard to keep and hire good teachers. I know you guys have seen that. Schools are struggling with behavior issues. We've got students less focused and engaged in the classroom. So it was a really interesting issue of the magazine, and some of these articles were fantastic. But what we wanted to talk about is how we can help address those challenges. And we truly believe that with LEGO Education Solutions and our hands-on playful learning, that we can address at least half of those challenges that are out there in the classroom. When you think about teacher recruitment and retention, a lot of that has to do with behaviors in the classroom, right? And we know that behaviors in the classroom tend to escalate when students aren't engaged. So those first two kind of go hand in hand, right? The more that we can address those student behavioral issues through engagement and getting students highly engaged in the process, we won't have that teacher recruitment and retention problem. We need joy in the classroom as much for the teacher's sake as we do for the students. That idea of schools being stuck in outdated models, right? You'll find that as we go through this, I think you'll notice ours is not outdated. It's absolutely innovative. And it really does help increase that idea of student focus. And then that last one, teachers have too much on their plates. I think we're going to be able to address that as well. So we understand teachers are under a lot of pressure and that there's a lot going on in the classroom. So we've got some ideas on how we can address that. So how can we help? What makes us unique? What makes that LEGO learning system so unique, right? I think the biggest thing is that those models bring all of the concepts that students are studying to life through a hands-on active engagement process. And I think that ability to get hands-on and to take those concepts that can be so abstract and make them concrete is one of the things that we do really, really well. The other thing that I think that LEGO Education has done, and I've seen this in 20 years of using the product, is looking at what the teacher needs and how can we scaffold both the student experience, but also the teacher experience so that you're both feeling supported. We've done a beautiful job of that, from incredibly comprehensive lesson plans that are thematically based within units to an incredibly intuitive app that allows students to work at their own pace. And we took the recommendations that teachers gave us and used them to improve the product so that it could definitely be what teachers need it to be. So that scaffolding, I think, is another piece that LEGO Education does very well. Our learning experiences are based on real world phenomena, right? And real world applications, which is what we need our students to be able to do. And finally, that idea of low floor, but limitless possibilities. I can tell you, I've never entered a classroom where people said to me, oh no, we have to learn with Legos today, right? It's that idea that you walk in and the excitement is there just when they recognize what you're bringing to the table. That's a low floor. And then to be able to take that and take it to the complex things that we can do with it, it's amazing. That's where those limitless possibilities come from. So hopefully we'll kind of talk through that as well. So my question is, where do we fit? Right? When you think about LEGO Education Solutions, where do we see ourselves in that classroom experience? I'm going to let my computer catch up with me because it's decided it doesn't want to move forward. We have LEGO Education happening across the country and around the globe, right? So we know that we really fit everywhere, from that early childhood classroom to the science classrooms to the computer science and robotics classrooms. We're seeing more and more people adopt our solutions within CTE courses and for career readiness, as well as math in the STEAM and the STEM classrooms and the STEM labs, and even for social emotional learning. I know I had one school district that I worked with that ordered one of our sets for all the social workers in the district because the set did such a beautiful job of addressing social emotional learning. So we know, and what we've seen is that teachers are using us across the curriculum. And what I wanted to show you is how that hits our Illinois learning standards. And if you've been on the ISBE site lately, you'll recognize some of these icons that pop up. But it's that idea of all of these different subjects address the standards that we need to teach in Illinois. When you think about the early learning and development standards, those are in that early childhood classroom. When you think about the science standards, you'd find that in a science classroom, you'd find those in a STEAM or STEM classroom. When you think about computer science, we have computer science standards. Those fit in both computer science, robotics, and CTE, and even in your STEM classrooms, right? That math is happening in the math classroom, but it's also in your STEM classroom. And then when you think about the English language learning or the English language arts, all of that is addressed within our lessons as well. So I think what you'll find is we really fit across all of those Illinois learning standards in all different ways. Obviously, different lessons hit in different ways, but it's really exciting to see how that can work. So I like to say we really got the ability to help you meet all of those learning standards across your curriculum. In addition to addressing those learning standards within your classes, we also have some free curriculum out there that are computer science courses. So from our Foundations of Physical Computing course to our Introduction to Python Programming 1 and Programming 2. All of these are free resources that once you purchase our product, you have the access to this curriculum, and it can help meet those course guides in the state of Illinois as well. So I brought up computer science, right? Why do we even need computer science? And I think that's an important conversation to have because it's definitely one of our newer standards on the block, right? But it's definitely worth having that conversation. So we think about how our world is shifting right now towards digitalization and automation, and that shift is happening at a pace that's accelerating daily. You know, if we took some information from the World Economic Forum through the McKinsey polls and Harris polls and looked at it, and basically what we found is that the jobs that are out there right now, current work activities can be automated. 50% of the jobs that are out there. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. That means that there is a large number from 75 to 375 million people who are going to need to change jobs over the next 10 years based on that. That's a lot of learning coming our way. And we're going to have to see how we can prepare people when we don't even know necessarily what it is we're preparing them for. Because of that, we know that it's going to need these soft skills, right? It's going to need the skills related to problem solving, to critical thinking or creativity, that combination of technological know-how along with the soft skills like collaboration or resilience or perseverance. Students are going to need this in order to be successful in a world that does not yet exist, right? We also know that there's going to be a 30 to 60% increase in demand for technology professionals worldwide. We need our students to be part of that world, right? So that they become capable of being hired in that world that's going to exist. Part of the need for that includes that need to be confident as a lifelong learner. Then we know with the economy that people don't stay in jobs for 20 years like we used to. People are constantly changing jobs. So as a result, they're going to need to be lifelong learners and be able to adopt that growth mindset in order to be able to make those shifts. So we recognize that all of this is happening as we speak. It's happening at a pace that is incredibly fast, and it's not changing anytime soon. So we need to prepare our students for that. So how are we doing? Let's take a look at some national numbers. Code.org has worked with other sources basically to collect this information. But of all of our states that are reporting this information, 29 states have adopted a policy to give all high school students access to computer science courses. It's good, but it's not quite where we need to be. 57.5% of public high schools offer at least one computer science course nationwide. So that number has increased. It's good. But we've got some room to grow. If you look at the top number, those are the number of open computing jobs nationwide. And that was as of last year, 2023. And yet, look at the number of students we're graduating into computer science in our workforce. We've got a gap, and that's a pretty large gap when you look at those numbers. One of the things that Code.org recommends is that each state do some of these things, right? In order to shift us towards a space where computer science is fundamental in K-12 education, from creating a state plan to defining standards to allocating funding and beyond. Some states have done a few of these things. Some states have done all of them, not many. And it's interesting to see where we are in terms of the progression. But we are definitely moving towards making that idea of computer science fundamental in the world of K-12 education. So here's how we're doing in Illinois. When you think about that number of 57.5%, in Illinois, it's only 54%. So we're just a little under the national average. It's not too bad. This is the number of open computing jobs that we have and the average salary for those jobs. These are life-changing statistics. If we can help students recognize and learn the skills they need in order to go into these fields, they will definitely be set in terms of lifetime earnings. So it's definitely something we want to look at. When we look at Illinois in comparison to the states around us, obviously we're doing better than some of our neighbors, but if you look at Indiana over here, not half as well as we need to be doing. So I think this is a real interesting graphic that kind of shows us where we are in the spectrum. We don't have that state plan yet, and we don't have that requirement for graduation. We do have state standards though, and that's half the battle. So it's interesting to see. This is another slide I like to look at. This kind of shows us where we are from a national perspective. And it also gives us a little bit of information about the people who are taking foundational computer science in Illinois. And only 6.2% of high school students in Illinois took those computer science courses in 21-22. And of those 6.2%, only 36% were female. So we've got some room for growth in there, right? I do like this statistic though, the fact that students of all racial and ethnic groups are similarly likely to take foundational computer science in Illinois. That's not normal. Usually there's a discrepancy between ethnicities and racial groups, and there isn't in Illinois. So that's a huge goal, a huge gain in my book. But we still have less access in smaller schools and less access in rural schools. So we have to make changes in that. We have to make shifts towards that as well. We do have our standards. I love the fact that we have standards. The standards are pretty much aligned to the CSTA standards. We did add this topic down on the bottom, that emerging and future technologies. I love that topic. Part of what I do in my role is I study the standards across the different states. And I love the fact that we're taking a look at those emerging technologies and where students can go with them and have standards related to exposing them to those emerging technologies. The other thing that I see that's incredible is that we have finally started dedicating, allocating funding towards this. And if any of you had the chance to apply for that computer science equity grant in April, it came out, and I think 2.5 weeks later it was due, or 3 weeks later. It was pretty quick, the turnaround for it. But so many people applied, and I think that shows incredible demand in our state for this, right? And I can only hope that that means that we'll see more funding next year as a result. So it's really exciting to see where we're headed. And again, not all states are allocating the funding to back up the mandates, right? So the fact that Illinois is one that is gets me excited. So let's talk about how LEGO education can help you hit all of these standards, right? Where do we fit? What does our learning system look like? I thought I'd start with a real quick little video to give you a visual of what this looks like. with digital solutions and non-digital solutions. So that's interesting. This is our continuum. The continuum.
Colleen,
Yes,
I'm sorry. I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. It was a little hard to hear what you were saying over the video. So I just want to make sure if we, I don't want to miss anything.
Thank you. I appreciate it. truly it wasn't that important what I was saying. It was more that idea of that you're seeing the joy in the classroom. You're seeing the hands-on learning that's taking place, right? And the fact that there were some solutions that were digital, but there were others that weren't digital solutions. So we have both. This graphic does a nice job of illustrating that. We start, and it goes back to that idea that when you think of the Lego brick is part of a system of play. When they invented that Lego brick, they wanted to develop a toy that you wouldn't take off the shelf once and play with and put it back, right? They wanted to develop a system of play that would allow you to take that off the shelf, build something with it, then decide you can make it better, build it even bigger, right? Or break it apart and do something completely new. It was that idea that every time you took that toy off the shelf, you could do something different with it. We're doing the same thing with our Lego learning system, right? The education portion of it. We want it to start as young as our pre-K kindergarten world and go all the way up. We have students who are using this at the university level. So, it's got that continuum of learning that goes all the way across. And it's a system that really is interconnected from one solution to the next. The ones on the left-hand side are Storytales, Coding Express, and Steam Park. Those are our kindergarten solutions, and they're based on the Duplo brick, that larger brick for our littler hands, right? Then you have the Spike Essential and the Brick Emotion. Both of those are elementary solutions for grades 1 through 5 or grades K through 5. And then we have the Spike Prime and the Brick Emotion Prime. Those start in 6th grade, and that's where I say they go 6th grade and beyond, right? You can use them in middle school, you can use them in high school, and we even have people using them at the university level. The solutions above the line represent our digital solutions. The solutions below the line represent our non-digital solutions. So we have a combination of both. This kind of shows you what those elementary and secondary solutions look like. They all come within one kit. They're organized with the little trays. Those trays for 3 of them are organized by color. And then for the 4th one, it's organized by function. We have electronic components for our digital solutions. And then we have the books with the instruction booklets with the builds in the non-digital, because the instructions for the digital solutions are built into the app. So they don't need the little booklets that go along with them. So it just kind of shows you what those solutions look like. I like to show this one. So that if this was our Spike Essential, this is our grades 1 through 5 solution. This is everything that comes within the kit, right? From the brick elements, because of course, all of our solutions are based on the brick, to the hardware, to the larger components that would be stored underneath those trays. These stack very nicely, which makes it very efficient. But this is just a small sample of all the different models that can be built from that kit, right? This is not all of them. I want to emphasize that. This is absolutely only a small portion of the models. But each one of these models is a lesson, has a lesson attached to it. Each one of these models addresses a different standard. When you think about that challenge of teachers having too much on their plates, this is that answer, right? That from that one box, all of these different lessons can come. And I think that's where I get excited. We recommend a ratio of one kit for every 2 students. One of the things we're trying to get students to do is collaborate and communicate and work together to solve those problems. So we're making sure that our solutions are based on that as well. Here's an example of a lesson from our Spike Essential. I'm going to go ahead and play this video. There should not be sound on this one, so let's see if I can't get it to play for you. This is one of my favorites. Of course, I have so many favorites. This one's called the Fast Lane. So in this model, they're in an amusement park, and there is an attraction they want to go through. Leo wants to go through, and there's obviously a super long line, right? And that's a problem. But the good thing is Leo has the fast pass, so he can go through the fast lane. And this is where you make those connections, those personal connections with students. Have you ever stood in a line for a ride or for an amusement park? Have you ever gotten that fast pass that lets you go through quickly? But basically, Leo shows his little yellow ticket, and then the light lights up if he's able to go through the fast lane. The build is simple, right? And yet so attractive. And I think that's one of the things that I love in this iteration of our solution. Teachers told Lego Education very clearly they didn't have 2 or 3 days to do a build for a model. They needed to be able to have this happen within a class period. So all of our models became very small so that they could be accomplished within one class period and then also programmed. I think that's huge. And then once the students have, learned the initial things that we ask them to iterate on the code or iterate on the build so that they're actually improving their model based on what they need to say. I love this because this is an example of a lesson that you can do in first grade that addresses the CTE career cluster of transportation, distribution, and logistics, right? When we talk about having our students be more career connected in their learning, this is a fantastic example of that because now you can start talking about, well, why do you even have a fast lane? What's the purpose of the fast lane, right? The purpose of the fast lane is to drive the traffic around the room, around the amusement park. So we're really starting to make some connections to why we're learning what we're learning and give them that idea of relevance. Making it meaningful, right? So this is an example of the code that the students would build. Again, first, second grade lesson, right? The students are building the code that shows the little yellow ticket, and then based on the yellow ticket, they're going to get either a green light to go in or a red light, or they can customize that matrix any way they want. But one of the things I love in a lot of our lessons is they can use that block of code that allows them to collect data, right? And build a bar graph. So every time they show a yellow ticket, it's going to track how many times it sees it, right? When they show a green ticket, it's going to add 1. When they show a red ticket, it's going to add 1. In this way, students are using the app to collect the data. And then once the data is collected, we can pull it up and take a look at it. We can analyze that data. We can say how many red tickets were collected, how many yellow tickets were collected, how many more red tickets than yellow tickets, how many tickets altogether, right? So it's that idea that we can really start using this for math concepts beyond what we were trying to teach for computer science. That's the idea of teaching across the curriculum, right? Making it more efficient for teachers. We don't want to add another set of standards and another set of things to teach. We want to teach the same things we've been teaching all along, but let's do it in an innovative way that gives them yet another skill they can take into the world. And what a fun way to learn that skill, right? So I just love this lesson. I think it's a great one. You take a look, these are all the standards that are addressed. These are all your math standards that are addressed, as well as your computer science standards in the state of Illinois. So it really goes to show the efficiency of it, right? That you don't have to do everything in isolation. Let's start getting those resources that really allow us to do multiple things within the classroom. Here's another one of my, well, again, a favorite. Here's another one of the lessons that I love. This is one called energy resources. It's where we're studying, it's a science-based lesson as opposed to computer science. And this is where we're studying the concept of wind turbines, right? And the students build this model of a wind turbine, and they put the little light matrix onto the plate as well. And then they build the code, and they click play, and they wait for the code. And they sit there and they wait. And then usually they turn to me and say, oh, something's wrong. I don't know what's going on, but something's wrong. It doesn't work. And I'm like, well, why doesn't it work? They're like, well, it's not spinning. And I have to ask them, well, how does a wind turbine work? And that's when we uncover the fact that when students are looking at a wind turbine, what they see is a fan. So they're waiting for that wind turbine to start working like a fan and spinning because they assume that's what the code's going to do. But that's not what the code does. And then finally, somebody starts to turn the blades of the wind turbine. And slowly, at first, this little light matrix starts to glow, but really faintly at first. But the faster they turn those blades, the more the light matrix lights up. And now we get the kids to recognize that wind turbines don't work because they're like a fan. They work because the invisible force of the wind is acting on them to turn those blades. And in turning those blades, it is converting that energy into electricity, right? So we're really getting them to understand the concepts. This is actually called abstraction, right? It's when you use a simulation or a model to help understand a concept. And I think that's one of the many things we do very well with Lego education. So take a look at this. These are all the standards that are addressed in that. As a science lesson, the students can start by building that wind turbine, but then challenge them. Say, what other renewable energy source do you want to study? Research it, build the model, program it so that we can see how that would work. And think about the incredible understanding they'll retain, right? Because it's hands-on, we know they're going to retain that learning longer. We actually just came out 2 weeks ago with a new set of lessons that enhance the A and the M in STEAM. What that means is we're looking at ways that we can support ELA and math in an even more explicit way. So we've taken these lessons that we've always had and we've built a whole new series of lessons around them to be able to help teachers see the math in the lesson and then teach it to the students. So we give them 2 more challenges, challenge 2 and challenge 3, and those ones are either ELA or math. They're all wrapped around the standards. So I think what we're recognizing is we knew it was there. It was always part of what you could talk about in the lesson, but we needed to make it more explicit so that we could scaffold the teachers more in delivering those lessons. Really excited about that. Reach out if you're interested. I know that Christy and Stephen would be really happy to share that information with you. I'm looking at my time. I think I'm doing okay. I'm going to go ahead and show a couple more lessons so you get a sense of what it is we do here. This one's
Today,
awesome.
we're going to explore the taxi lesson. In this lesson, your students will practice identifying and fixing errors in a program to build a taxi for Leo and navigate Spike Town. Using their taxis, your students will complete 3 challenges. First, they'll program the taxi to move. For the best ride, be sure to run the taxi on a clean and dry surface. Next, they'll modify the program to make the taxi follow the route that's shown on Leo's map in the app. And finally, they'll design a new route for Leo's next trip.
So I think you get a sense of what they're doing. Again, a small model that they're building, right? And now they're programming that model. And what you see is the vertical programming stacks. Now we're moving into the word blocks, just like in energy resources. That first lesson I showed you, the fast lane was icon blocks. They read left to right. There's no words on them, right? And now we're moving into that next level of the progression, which is word blocks, so that students are reading at this point. We can start building our programs in a vertical stack, much like they would if they were computer scientists. So, and when they get to text-based coding, it'll follow that same path. This is an example of the lesson from Taxi, and basically they're being taught how to get the taxi to move forward and backwards. But take a look at the math here, right? We're looking at centimeters, moving it by the unit of measure of the metric system. Not many students can visualize what that metric system looks like, right? So we're giving them the opportunity to move this taxi model within the metric system using centimeters. They could switch to the customary and they could do it with inches, or they can get it to move based on rotations of the wheel. I get excited when we do that because now when we talk about rotations of the wheel, we can talk about, well, what is the wheel? The wheel's a circle. How many degrees are in the circle? There's 360. All right, if I wanted to go 2 rotations, how many degrees are in that? So then they can switch it from rotations to degrees and they can actually see that happen, and it brings that math to life, right? So you're having all kinds of conversations about it. I used to give this lesson when I was doing this with 4th and 5th graders. Essentially, we'd ask them to go a specific distance, and I'll never forget the girl who came up to me and said, I can't do it. There's no way to get it to go 80 centimeters. If I send it 3 rotations, it's too far. If I send it 2 rotations, it's not enough. It's not possible. And then the kid behind her kind of looked at her and went, well, what about fractions? This was 5th grade. We knew we taught fractions. We knew because it's a high-performing district that they tested well in fractions. She's telling me there's no numbers between 2 and 3. So then she's like, oh, that's right. I could try a half. And she goes to type it in and she goes, oh, it's not possible. I can't put 1 over 2. There's no way to enter that into the screen. And that's when I'm like, oh no, we taught decimal equivalents too, right? So it's that idea that we need to give students the chances to apply skills that they're learning, right? And I think that's another thing. Our models bring all that learning to life. Taxi is another one. Okay, they're all my favorites. Who am I kidding? Sorry. Here's some more of those standards that we're addressing, right? From the math to the computer science, the measurement standards. And there's that ET emerging technologies one, create new or original work by applying emerging technologies. I would definitely rate robotics as an emerging technology for our students. They do the same thing with our Spike Prime model, but take a look at the code. The code gets a little more complex. They're starting to use conditionals. They're starting to use operators within those conditionals because now they're getting it to turn using the gyro sensor within it. So it's really exciting to see the development of the programming skills from one grade level to the next. And here we have the standards that are being addressed within that as well. And this is the last one I wanted to share with you. This is called This is Uphill. This is a great lesson that really teaches the students how to read data on a line plot, which is fantastic because, again, it's about using our models to teach a concept or an idea that is pretty abstract otherwise. Obviously, we're not using this model to teach students how to ride a bike. This is about getting them to get that model to go on a straight plane, and then they're going to read the power level and the pitch of that robot, right, as they're reading through it. So they're starting to see, the power level's pretty even until it hits the bottom of that incline. And then at that point, we have a spike in power because it needs more oomph for that energy to get up that hill. Once it starts leveling out and going up, power level levels out again, right? So it's really about telling the story behind the data and getting students to recognize how those line plots are formed by individual data paths that are collected along the way. And this actually happens as they're playing their model. And then the code, of course, is what gets that to happen. So another one of those great ways of just bringing learning to life, right? And this is an idea of the types of standards that would be addressed in a lesson like that as well. So hopefully you got a sense of what our solutions look like, as well as the types of lessons that you can do within our solutions. I do like to say it's that idea of a system of learning, right? That we're starting in that pre-K, kindergarten, first grade level, and then we're building on those concepts and skills so that the next thing that they're going to do is that next level of the progression of learning, right? So in this one, you see what happens when an object is placed on a ramp, and the students at this level are really just looking at forces of motion, pushes and pulls, and they're learning a little bit about gravity. We're doing that again at the next level, but now we're bringing in the idea of the weighted brick versus the unweighted brick, and how does mass affect that? The speed at which it goes down, and then friction comes on. And then finally, we take that to the next level as well, and we're looking at the angle at which it's going, as well as the mass and momentum. So it really is exciting to see that development of their learning across the concepts and the skills. The same thing is true of their programming skills, starting with the action blocks in our pre-kindergarten, kindergarten solutions, moving to those icon blocks, which are left to right, no words, moving to the word blocks, which are the vertical stacks, and then finally even into text-based programming with Python. My colleagues, Christy and Stephen, know how excited I get about the fact that we have Python now built into our app, and we can do this directly within this app. We had it in EV3 Mindstorms, but it wasn't easy to implement. So the fact that we now have that API directly in the app and that students can use those same models, it's really going to allow for some amazing differentiation. Moving on to that concept of progression of learning, and this time we're going to look at it instead with the digital model, right? So here are some models that are pre-K1 using the color sensor. We already looked at the fast lane earlier. That set below is our kindergarten solution, Coding Express, and that train is making decisions based on the little action bricks that lay along the track. And then we move from there into our trash monster machine, which is one of our 3-5 models, where they're again using a color sensor, right? But they're creating a different type of program that reacts to the different types of trash. And then from there, we move into the automated, which is an automated robot that is going to pick up packages based on their colors. So again, it's that progression of learning. They're all about color sensors, but we're learning at the pace and the developmental speed we need to. And there's just an example of what the code progression could look like as well. So it's that pretty exciting to see the types of things you can do with this. This last piece here is just a slide that really talks about the utility of the solutions, right? The fact that once you purchase us, there is no cost after that. There's no subscription fees yearly. There's no cost for the curriculum. You know, the purchase is the purchase, and it's yours to use for as long as you want, essentially, in whatever way you want. So if you purchase it for an instructional program, you can use it for an after-school program. If you purchase it for after school, you can use it for a summer program. It's a non-consumable. It's a teaching and learning tool. And once it's yours to use in whatever way you need to. And I think that's where you have that high return on your investment, right? Or better said, that bigger bang for your buck, I think is what it comes down to. Beyond all of the things that we have created for our solutions, we also have the Tufts University placemats. Other people are building solutions other people are building lessons around our solutions as well. Tufts has done a beautiful job building what they call these placemats. They're 2 Google Slides, and the Google Slides have a challenge that they're asking students to do. Once they put that challenge out there, they give them a couple of different careers to think about related to it, give them some example ideas on how they might solve that, and then some example ideas on how to build it and how to code it. And then finally, a further challenge to take it to the next step. They've built a whole slew of these placemats, right? And some of them are organized in place lists, and they have them for word blocks and for text-based coding with Python. So it's pretty amazing to see other people also building around our solutions in terms of what kids can do. And I like to finish with this slide. This is that low floor, limitless possibilities, right? That idea that because of who we are, because of the fact that you're walking in with Lego solutions, kids get excited to learn with Lego. That's the low floor I was talking about. And it's not just kids. I've seen teachers react in the same way when I walk in the room. So it's that idea that you're going to be able to get kids to pay attention and to learn without having to really struggle, right? But we have a high ceiling. I'm hoping that what you saw, what I showed you, shows how much you can do with this solution, right? That there are so many different models available. But then on top of it, the wide walls. It's that idea that once we get out of their way, none of these are lessons that we've built. These are things that students have built when they said, hey, I have a problem I want to solve. And then they built it with our solution, with our Spike Prime solution. That's where it gets really exciting to see what the kids come up with. That's the wide walls that we hope all of them can get to. So I hope that we have inspired you a little bit in terms of what hands-on learning can look like to support the Illinois State Learning Standards. I am more than happy to take some questions if you have any. If not, I'm also putting up on here a slide that shows you Christy and Stephen's account information so that you can reach out to them if you want to. They are happy to talk to you about any and all of the solutions that I covered today or answer any questions that you might have.
Colleen, thank you so much for being here and for going through this. I have always been a fan of using Lego bricks in the classroom, even before I recognized that there was entire lessons that were planned around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. There has never been a student that I even had an experience with who has been upset that they're going to use Lego bricks in the class period.
Right? So true. Exactly.
Yeah, this was great. I did leave the comment in the chat, but seeing that onesie folder at the end there, I could have used that a million times over. Wish I would have thought of it.
I know the things that kids come up with, I think are fantastic.
I know, right?
They solve the problem that they have, right?
So I wanted to make sure I said thank you now, but I also am going to, true to what I said at the beginning, I'm going to stop the recording because I know that sometimes people they are more free to ask questions if they're not being recorded. So let me do that now.
Awesome.